the temple service get their food from the temple, and those who serve at the altar share in what is sacrificed on the altar? In the same way, the Lord commanded that those who proclaim the gospel should get their living by the gospel. 1 Corinthians 9:13-14. These words of the Apostle Paul appear in his first letter to the church in Corinth. In chapter 9, Paul makes it clear that those who proclaim the gospel should be paid for their work, just as those in the military and farmers expect to be paid for their work.
Very few vocations have as much transparency around the cost of salary and benefits as we have for rostered ministers, pastors, and deacons. When you are ready to move forward with calling a pastor or deacon to your ministry site, a special call vote meeting is set for the purpose of extending a letter of call to the candidate. In some synods, this will be followed by a separate vote on the salary and benefits. Be sure to be in contact with your synod office for specific guidance about the necessity of a vote on the compensation and benefits package. So, why does compensation matter to a ministry site profile, development committee, call committee, council, or other entities in a ministry site? Because the ministry site profile you will complete or review requires you to list information about compensation and benefits. The council will also be responsible for negotiating the specifics of the compensation and benefits package when it comes time to extend a call to a rostered minister.
In the MSP, you will be asked to provide the maximum amount that your ministry site can provide in defined compensation. What is defined compensation? It's made up of three things: base salary, housing, and a Social Security offset. The base salary is determined by the years of experience your pastor or deacon has, plus any increases the rostered minister should receive due to advanced degrees held beyond an MDiv degree, and any increases due to the responsibilities of the call. For example, being responsible for supervising several church staff, or being the lead pastor in a multiple pastor call. Housing is provided in one of two ways, either by paying a housing allowance or providing a parsonage. The housing allowance is paid to the pastor in addition to the base salary. Refer to your synod's compensation and benefits guidelines to figure the appropriate housing allowance. The guidelines will also provide you information on how to determine the defined compensation if your ministry site provides a parsonage instead of a housing allowance.
Please remember, when your ministry site owns a parsonage, you are offering your rostered minister one choice of where to live. The parsonage should be in good condition, have modern appliances, and should be remodeled as needed to keep up with modern preferences and taste. When your ministry site is in transition between rostered ministers, the property committee should carefully inspect the parsonage for needed repairs and updates, but so should the council or councils and the call committee. You will be showing the parsonage to prospective candidates for your call. You do not want the condition of your parsonage to be the reason why a rostered minister turns down your call.
The final piece of defined compensation is the Social Security offset. For the purpose of Social Security taxes only, rostered ministers are considered self-employed, though they will receive a W-2 at the end of each year. As a result, ministry sites do not withhold Social Security or FICA taxes from the rostered minister's paycheck or pay the ministry site's portion of FICA taxes to the IRS. The rostered minister must pay the employer's portion of FICA taxes as well as their own portion taxes as self-employment taxes, which are paid through quarterly estimated tax payments to the IRS. The Social Security offset is paid to the pastor as additional income to reimburse them for the ministry site's portion of these taxes.
Another important part of the package provided the pastor or deacon is insurance benefits and retirement. Portico Benefit Services, a subsidiary of the ELCA, manages these plans. Portico provides health and dental insurance, disability, and group life insurance for rostered ministers and their families. Sometimes a rostered minister may be eligible to receive health insurance coverage through the employer of a spouse. In that case, the rostered minister may choose to waive health insurance coverage through Portico. However, the ministry site will still need to pay a small monthly premium for disability insurance and basic group life insurance, as well as contributing to the retirement plan. If the rostered minister is required to pay a monthly premium to be on their spouse's health insurance, the ministry site should reimburse the pastor or deacon for this expense through additional salary or an additional contribution to the Portico retirement plan. This is also important to keep the space open in the budget for the future when a pastor may require health insurance coverage through Portico again.
The ministry site's retirement benefit contribution is set between 10% and 12% of defined compensation. Refer to your synod's compensation guidelines for the local rate. If the rostered minister you intend to call is receiving a higher percentage for retirement in their current call than you typically offer, they may negotiate for you to keep them at their current percentage. Your synod's minimum compensation guidelines will have more information about these and other benefits that are covered in Step 3 of the online ELCA MSP system. You may contact Portico Benefit Services or your synod staff to help estimate how much insurance and retirement benefits will cost for a certain rostered minister. Your synod staff can help you to determine a total defined compensation range for a specific number of years of service and position responsibilities by referring to the synod's minimum compensation guidelines. Every synod develops minimum compensation guidelines every year with the hope of paying a competitive salary and benefits to pastors and deacons. These guidelines are designed to cover a variety of circumstances because there are times when paying the minimum would not be appropriate given the level of responsibility of the call or when there is a much higher cost of living in a certain community.
When offering a call, if you can make a commitment up front that you will keep your rostered minister compensated at least minimum guidelines throughout their time under call, it will be seen as a plus. If your ministry site is willing and able to make that commitment, it should be listed prominently in your MSP. To make this policy official and approved by the ministry site, it can be added to the compensation paperwork at the time of the congregational call vote that the minister will be paid at or above the synod's minimum compensation guidelines. Your rostered minister will be relieved to not have to negotiate salary every year and will be able to focus on ministry.
Finally, and most importantly, we need to talk about equity of compensation and benefits. We all have biases that can affect our assumptions about how much an individual needs to be compensated. Many of these assumptions we may not even recognize consciously or be aware of as we make a decision. As in other vocations, rostered ministers who identify as female, BIPOC, and/or LGBTQIA+ tend to be paid less than those who are not members of these groups. People with these minority identities also often see fewer or smaller increases in base salary annually. These biases must be named and then set aside when determining compensation and benefits for a rostered minister. Our Region 5 synods are committed to helping you understand the need to provide just and equitable compensation and benefits for your rostered ministers, regardless of race, ethnicity, age, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, disability, economic status, and other diverse backgrounds. Compensation and benefits are to be negotiated in good faith by both the rostered minister and the ministry site to meet the needs of both. May the Holy Spirit lead and guide you in your call process and bringing your pastor or deacon to you.